welcome to it. It is a huge day for the Second Amendment. The Supreme Court today ruling that Americans have a right to carry firearms in public for self-defense. It is now being called the biggest gun ruling in a generation. The case centered around a century-old New York City law that made it extremely difficult to get a license for a concealed handgun. Essentially, an individual has had to prove they had a specific need to defend themselves, and those licenses were always turned down. It was a 6-3 ruling. The conservatives ruling that it is unconstitutionally vague and restrictive not to give people those permits, and that every American has a right to defend themselves. A natural right, I might add. Democrats, of course, they are losing their minds. Among them, the president and the vice president, but they lost those a while ago. Watch.
I am disappointed in the Supreme Court gun decision. I think it's a bad decision. I think it's not reasoned accurately, but I'm disappointed.
I believe that the Supreme Court's decision today defies logic in terms of what we know we are capable of doing with reasonable gun safety laws to secure the safety and the well-being of the people of our nation.
Oh, she is such a conflator. She wouldn't know logic if it bit her on the arse of her pantsuit. Even the Department of Justice said it disagreed with the ruling. They all hate your freedom. Republicans see it much differently, at least some of them. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who represents a district in the deep blue state of California, said in a statement, quote, "The Constitution protects the right of law-abiding Americans to own a firearm for self-defense through the Second Amendment, which states like New York have tried to restrict that right through burdensome laws and regulations. The Supreme Court has, on multiple occasions, recognized it and today strengthened it. Today's ruling rightfully ensures the right of all law-abiding Americans to defend themselves without unnecessary government interference," end quote. And the plaintiff in the case added, quote, "The lawful and legal gun owner of New York State is no longer going to be persecuted by laws that have nothing to do with the safety of the people and will do nothing to make people safer." And maybe now we'll start going after criminals and perpetrators of these heinous acts. See, very important differentiation there. Gonna get a harumph. Thank you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how correctly did the court rule? Here with me now, 2020 Libertarian Party vice presidential candidate and chair of You Are the Power, Spike Cohen. Spike, welcome back.
Thanks for having me on, Kennedy.
So people now have the power, Spike. People now have the ability to defend themselves. How necessary was this decision?
I think it was absolutely necessary, and honestly, I think that the majority led by Justice Thomas knocked it out of the park with this one. They not only said that it was a violation of the Second Amendment, which it clearly was, it was also a violation of the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause, because in saying that they would, on a case-by-case, decide who they subjectively think should or should not be able to exercise their right to carry a firearm outside of their own home, they were absolutely discriminating against people by their own admission. That was actually the point of the rule, was to discriminate and obviously to violate people's self-defense rights. I think it was a great decision. It's not only going to affect New York's gun laws, it's going to affect at least 6 or 7 other states that have so-called may issue laws when it comes to gun permits.
As opposed to shall issue.
And this sets this, as opposed to shall issue, and it sets the stage. The wording that was used in this sets the stage for future challenges to gun laws that could eventually lead to what we really need, which is constitutional carry, which is you being able to carry a firearm without getting the government's permission at all first.
So people are losing their minds because they are conflating unlawful acts and bad people with the right for law-abiding citizens to protect and defend themselves. How can you convince people that this is actually a good thing for liberty when they lump everything together, as the governor of New York called it, gun culture?
Yeah, so I think the first thing we need to do is to keep underscoring the fact that criminals, especially violent criminals, mass murderers and so forth, they don't care what the law is, with guns or with murder for that matter. We look at the Uvalde shooting that just happened in Texas. That shooter went through the background check and everything else and came out A-OK, got the gun, would have gotten the gun illegally had he not been able to get it legally, because, again, he demonstrated that he didn't care what the law was, since it is illegal to murder multiple people. And we saw the government's reaction. They stood around outside. They stopped armed civilians who were trying to go in to protect their loved ones and the students as well. And, that's, there's the old phrase, when seconds count, the police are minutes away. Well, now we know the police are minutes away to then stand outside for an hour or more. And we just need to underscore that if you are someone, especially on the left, who believes that the police are unfairly enforcing laws in a harmful and inequitable way, then why would you want them and the criminals to be the only ones to be able to properly defend themselves?
But so this is the other thing that the governor of New York didn't address. There are already guns on the streets here in New York City,
yes.
and people who wish you harm have access to them. How does something like this do anything but protect people who have done everything and gone through all of the hoops and the legal processes to have a firearm in the city, which if you were caught with that, that's 2 felonies. Good night, Sally.
Exactly. Many people, who I may be dating myself and possibly you here as well, remember the Bernie Getz scandal that happened back in the 80s, where a man named Bernie Getz, who had been mugged multiple times, applied.
Sorry, go ahead.
Applied for a gun license and was denied a carry license in New York City. So he went and got one illegally, and within a matter of days, he was assaulted again, and he used it to defend himself. And they weren't able to get him for assault because he clearly defended himself, but they were able to prosecute him for unlawfully owning a firearm. Well, it shouldn't have been against the law for him to own a firearm. He was a law-abiding citizen who was protecting himself from multiple times of being mugged. And this is exactly the kind of thing that's not going to happen in the future thanks to this decision.
No, you are the future, Spike Cohen.
Thank you.
That's a compliment. Thank you so much for being here. I always appreciate talking to you, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Thank you, Spike. The Supreme Court ruling.
Next step is stop red flag laws.
Absolutely right. God bless America. I'm glad you brought that up.